Hello, everybody, and welcome to tonight's interview. We have with us this evening Senator Vincent P. Martin of the Green Party joining us. Vincent is a senator. He's a senator serving in Shannon Éireann. He's also a barrister. He was born in Cavan, grew up in Carrickmacross, Monaghan, but has been living in Kildare for a long time. He is the brother of Catherine Martin, former deputy leader of the Green Party. He studied at UCD, Maynooth University and King's Inns. And he was at one point on Monaghan County Council as an independent candidate. I'll invite Vincent to correct me on any of that in a moment when I introduce him and give him the mic, as it were. Vincent topped the poll in Naas in 2019 local elections and was nominated to the Seanad in 2020. So there's a whistle-stop tour of who we're speaking with tonight. Also a genuinely very lovely person and someone who's been available to me and to the Castletown campaign. We'll get to that in due course. But in the meantime, Vincent, I'll invite you to take the mic and say hello to everybody who's watching, and we'll get into some questions then. So over to you.
Hi, everyone, and good evening. And I'd like to say hello to all your viewers, but also to you, Trasa, for the role you play in broadcasting. I think it's an absolutely not just pivotal, but a dynamic and essential role for community cohesion and for democracy. So I don't think I said that the last time, but I'm just saying well done to you and any other such providers of broadcasting throughout the length and breadth of Ireland, especially at election time. I think it's very important and I'm delighted to partake tonight.
Thank you.
Will I go on?
You do, please tell us a little bit about your campaign. What are you hearing? You know, it's really over to you to just, I suppose, set yourself out for voters in this area. I know you're kind of based around Naas, and so you'll be looking to grow your base for this election and creep into Selvage and those areas in northeast Kildare where you have the population density and the voters are there as well. So give us a little bit of an overview of your campaign, where you're coming from, for anybody who doesn't know you yet.
Well, maybe I'll tell my story. I got into politics due to planning. I'm passionate about planning, and there was sporadic and haphazard rezoning issues in County Monaghan, my native county, not Cavan, as you said, by the way, what's another fine Ulster County.
Oh, thank you.
In your introduction. And there was a primetime award-winning Investigate special produced by Mike Malotte. It sounds like a long time ago, but that was my first foray in politics. At the time, the council executive expert advice was not to zone land here and there because it will, quote unquote, flood other houses already in existence. So I was more times than not a minority of one in the council that said, no, that's not proper planning. That's not in the best interest of our communities. And I was an independent, and John Gormley phoned me up. He was then the Minister of Environment. And I just said, I struck one deal with him. I said, if you get into government, will you reverse these? Because I was a lawyer, I knew you could do this under, I think it's Section 31 of the Planning Act. He said, Vincent, not only will I reverse them, my immediate predecessor, I think it was Dick Roach, is appalled by them as well. He'll do it. He has done it, and I'm going to continue that. So we come down to County Monaghan and announced the reversal of these some bonker planning decisions. And that, I felt empowered. Politics doesn't always work out, but you can play your part. And then a little bit more background information about myself. I always try to support and be a voice for people that might not have a voice. I wrote the first ever program for prisoners, male and female prisoners, the first ever law program in prisons. I'm privileged to be a barrister. My parents didn't have a lot, but they put it all into education. And I didn't forget that. And I just stumbled upon law by chance. It wasn't on the state curriculum. But I became a student union leader at Maynooth, and you're suddenly running a sweet shop, travel shop, canteen, gymnasium, a nightclub, and that cut my employing people. I got a great interest in law, but only for that I mightn't have known about that world. So I decided to write a program which has gone out to, at this stage, over 250,000 students, although I'm now stood back from it because I don't have the time anymore, but I did it for 20 years, founded, and that was in transition year, including many schools, including in Selbridge, a visiting barrister would come out and demystify the law for the day. And then the culmination was a mock trial competition in the forecourts. And then the winning 4 teams would represent Ireland in New York in a World Cup of mock trials. A Raw Naveen would be played. The tricolour would be raised. And that I now meet people in the law library that tap me on the shoulder and they say, only for the transitional coordinator and that course, I wouldn't be a lawyer today. They never thought of that perspective. And then maybe a little bit more background information about myself. I was the founder of the New Beginning group of lawyers. I was the guy that got them all together after the last crash in 2010. There was 20,000 mortgage holders in financial distress. They had nowhere to turn. There was no civil legal aid at the time, although I lobbied for it and it's since happened. There was no personal insolvency regime at the time, although I lobbied for it and it's since happened. In other words, there was no little NAMA. But now we have that, and I walked away from that when I knew that was done. Just like Féile Liam O'Flynn, the founder of that festival here in Naas to celebrate our local Uillinn Piper. I come up with that idea, but I headhunted a wonderful committee. I'm on it for 3 years, and maybe next year I'll take a break from it. And I know I can because I'm leaving it in better condition, and it's going to thrive without me. That's a lovely legacy when you walk away from something and you know it's going to get stronger. But then I met my lovely wife, Hilda, who's from Naas, County Kildare. We've 2 kids, now 6 and 8. She's a GP in Clane. And I got interested in politics again. I had the bug. Now, people say to me, Vincent, you must be a bit of a dynasty yourself and your sister. And I say, not really. I think a dynasty is intergenerational. It's a bit of a coincidence the 2 of us are in politics. And none of the next generation are shown an interest in it. But I absolutely find it a privilege and an honour to represent people. I topped the poll in Naas. I narrowly missed the general election in 2020, if you remember. And now I'm facing into an entirely different challenge, Trasa, whereby my party is now in government. And I didn't come down in the last shower. I know what that means. Historically, the small party can take a real hit at a time of a general election, no matter who it is, Labour.
It can, and I remember, in fact, Vincent, because I don't know if you recall, but I was standing beside you as that final count came in. Do you recall?
The vote didn't shake out properly for me, Trasa.
That's right. I remember feeling your pain in that moment because, of course, sometimes the numbers, there's a moment of clarity and however you feel about anybody's politics, so no matter who it would have been, a difficult moment.
It was a difficult moment. I was very disappointed, but I treat those 2 imposters the same, victory and defeat. I was as devastated as anyone, but I got over it. I'd like to think within a few days, and everyone was very nice. And I turned up and I shook hands with everyone. It was a good campaign, as this one is as well. There's a bit of camaraderie amongst us candidates. It's not easy putting your name on a ballot paper, and I have the high respect for each and every person that does that. And I was disappointed then, but now we're in government and small parties can often take a wallop. That's the reality of it. And what I'm seeing on the doors, to come up to date with what you're asking me about how's the campaign going, if I think of it, I say on the doors that I think the next Dáil will be a lesser place if there's no green voice in that Dáil, especially the week we had in Valencia, Barcelona, Malaga, the tragic floods. I believe for the next generation, it would be good to have a green voice in that Dáil. Well, we're not going to dominate the Dáil.
Sure.
But in my time in the Shannon, I also tell them I've done the most bills ever in a current sitting of the Shannon. It's 12 published bills. They're like little books. I think the next nearest is half that at 6. That doesn't mean the senator is not hardworking. He or she works in a different way. But I'm a lawyer and a legislator, qualified as a barrister, became a senior counsel in 2017. And my 12 bills have started a conversation, and some of them have been enacted. And to bring you right up to speed, what I'm saying on the door, I'm saying, give me a mandate to go into the lower house, Dáil Éireann, to finish some of those legislative initiatives. I got some bills, some ideas over the line with the government, and I don't know if we've time to go into them, 5 bills in the area of domestic violence.
I'm aware of that.
You don't hear about it too much in the media,
Yeah, that's
but
right.
the co-authors of the main textbook in this area, Keith Walsh, Senior Counsel, and Sonia Dixon. And I've put in my leaflet, because you can't be shy behind a door. You can't let your modesty pervade. They used to say a quiet priest never got a parish. So I put their quote into my brochure, where they said, I have made a difference as a legislator. I have changed the law, and I have created a quiet revolution under the radar.
You certainly have, and under the radar somewhere that those topics.
And there's a quote, and then hopefully it's in the leaflets that arrived in Selbridge. I brought in the native Irish honeybee on my own, and I got a collaborative approach from all the senators. I contacted each and every senator, and I said, the black native bee is about to become extinct. It's with us since 3000 BC with our traces of beeswax in Galway. It's on a different, transcends the pint of Guinness, if you think that's an Irish symbol. This is real. This is biodiversity. We all know the importance of pollination. I got my bill through every stage in the Shannon without an amendment. I would now like to grab that bill if I go into the Dáil and finish the job, because you have to get approval and votes and clearance from both houses of the Oireachtas before it is made law. So it's a broad mix of legislation. My last one was probably, in a sense, the most poignant one on the last day of the Shannon, my 12th bill. And it was to create greater awareness around cancer detection for esophageal cancer. My dad died of esophageal cancer over 20 years ago, and I've teamed up with Esophageal Cancer Fund Ireland to create greater awareness. And what my bill suggests, and they're looking for this, is to put signs in the pharmacy at the point of supply or sale to say, if heartburn and such symptoms persist, don't go with Rennies and Gaveston for the next 6 months. Go to your GP, get sorted out. So I'm delighted. Now, that bill is not law. It didn't happen. But I hope I'm shining a light on a cause, and I've triggered a conversation, Tressa.
Absolutely. Well, you've been very effective at triggering conversations, for sure. I want to, and that's not to take away from the subjects, but some of the bills that you've worked on have been extremely powerful, extremely important, and extremely poorly discussed, or didn't get the highlight that they needed, or didn't hit those headlines. But
I sent my 5 bills into the media, and no one was interested.
But this is the thing. This is the thing, and that's what happens when you have a.
But I double down, and I'm twice as passionate about it. But it's not a headline grabbing thing. But it's more important than that for me. I was a lawyer who worked in that field.
Well, the quiet work is often the most important work. Yeah. And there's plenty of people watching who will understand and agree with that. I want to talk a little bit about, you said that, you want to have the Green Party in government because you believe that there should be a green presence in the next government and in the next Dáil to make sure that the full pressure is kept on climate change and climate issues. And I understand that, because it's, of course, the raison d'etre of the Green Party. Do you feel that those policies on climate are being cannibalized a little bit? I'm seeing climate policies coming out from all of the different parties at the moment. How do the Green Party distinguish themselves when everybody has, I don't want to say jumped on the bandwagon, because that would disrespect the important topic of climate, but everybody has certainly come on board with the importance of climate. How does the Green Party distinguish itself now?
Well, imitation is the best form of flattery, but we consider ourselves leaders. But it's not them and us. We have to take people on the journey. And I have no time for finger wagging judgmentalism. I don't like when citizen turns on citizen, says, oh, you were in a flight last week. That's absolutely terrible. I want modal seismic shift at state and global level. So I find it encouraging, but we are a party of government, not a party of street protest. The planet was burning. We don't decide who our partners are in government. But a few weeks before this government came to, before the Dáil was dissolved, I suppose the government's still in a caretaker capacity. We had a government memo that was shot down by the two parties, which are entitled to do, Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, to spend 2 billion of the climate fund on more injection into retrofit. And I'd love to see everyone being retrofitted for free. I'd like to see public transport for free. These are win-wins to stop the fines, and it brings more people on board in the long term.
Does it ever strike you, Vincent? I'm going to come in there just I'm curious about this. The amount of grants there are for solar panels and insulation and upgrades and, triple glazed windows and all the rest of it. There's plenty of grants out there. And you're right, we could do with more. But the amount of documentation you have to get through, it is
Yeah.
just ridiculous. And it's not a case of, well, let's find more resources to show people how to navigate all this
Yeah.
documentation. I really wish the government would just cut the
I
crap
think
with
so.
that stuff and
The
give us
Greens
what they want
to,
us to have. Yeah, it's absolutely mired in bureaucracy for households.
the Greens want a one-stop shop in respect to that. But I was canvassing tonight, and someone whom I know said, "Oh, Vincent P, we want to do the solar panels, and it's good. There's some incentives, but they're not enough for me to put in the solar panels." And I said, "You're dead right. For many people, it's not enough, and that's not good enough." But I said to the person on the doorstep, what would it be like without the Green Party in government? We were in the Shannon. We brought in the bill to get rid of the VAT on the labour and supplies of the solar panel installation. We got rid of, as a party, and it wasn't even the programme for government, the protocol of planning permission before you put solar panels, a certain amount of them, above a certain amount, on your private dwelling roof. The grants have to be much better, but objectively, we were told, I have been told, it's kind of a convoluted compliment from Michael Healy-Rae and people to say the Greens were wagging the tail of the dog and we did very well. So we did very well. We learned maybe the lessons from 2010, and we were back, and we got climate on a statutory footing for the first time ever, climate targets. That's the biggest legacy of this government, I would feel. And we got the reverse vending machines in. We did a pilot here in Nice, and we got about 1.2 million cans and aluminium cans and plastic bottles. And that research went in the pilot project to Minister Smith. And I'm sorry for those who were always doing the right thing and putting them in the green bin, but we have to get that up to 90%. It's now in 600 million cans and plastic bottles have been, rendered safe, got to the right home. So these things would not happen only for the Greens in government. I'm proud of my sister, what she's done for artists in this country. She's been rightly described as probably the best arts minister since Michael D. Higgins. We now have a basic income for artists, and we love our artists, but we don't give them just empty words. They want help. And for them to create, they must need space. Otherwise, they'll create something that will just buy them their next lunch. It'll be like cookie cutting stuff they're doing instead of individualistic expression. That initiative made the front page of the New York Times. Wouldn't happen without the Greens in government. And we'd like to expand that. And we're happy to say that I think Fine Gael have said in their manifesto that they're going to retain it. And I'm so happy they're going to do that.
Was it on a pilot scheme that was turned into a larger permanent scheme, or is it coming out of the pilot phase?
The pilot was a 3-year pilot. The pilot was a 3-year pilot. And it's now, I think there's about 6 months left in it. Okay. And our concern was, if we're not in the next government, and my concern is that the Greens have a fight in their hands to see if they're in the next government or not.
Yeah.
And we even have a fight in our hands because I'm realistic about this. Will we be in the Dáil? Because we're a small party. If you're going to follow history, we have our work cut out. We'll be fighting it out. I know it's a cliche and politicians say it, to be slogging it out for the last seat. I can assure you the seats won't come easy for the Green Party because we have our work cut out, but I hope we can do it.
Would you, if you were to go back into the Dáil as a party, let's say on a like for like or on a growth basis, for sake of hypothesis, would you go back in with Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil?
We'd go back in with anyone if the deal was right. But the deal has to be right. It's one person, one vote in our party. It's very democratic. And if it's like the EU is called our Green Deal that we got, the Green Deal we got in the last programme for government negotiations, which I was part of, the best Green Deal in Europe. So, if we got a deal like that again, I think we'd go in, but we'd have such more ambition maybe this time. Like the standout thing in our manifesto, if we're allowed back into government, and that's a matter for the people to decide, we're spending 10 billion for once and for all, fundamentally tackle public transport in this country. We take public transport seriously. Many of us in the party would consider it our middle name. We've done, and we're very proud of some of the things we've done in public transport, 50%, well, 20% reduction in fares, the first one since 1947 for adults, 50% under 25s, free under 9s. But people say, but Vincent P., all those fare reductions are great, but the trains are not reliable, the buses are not reliable, there's not enough of them. So I'd love to connect the two lines, the Maynooth line, which heads to Sligo, and the Hazelhatch Selbridge Sallins line, which heads to Cork. There's no interconnection, but that'd be an ambitious plan. But
I think you mentioned there, I mean, it would cost something like, I think, did you say 9 or 10 billion for that ambitious plan on public transport? What are we paying in fines every year for not meeting our climate target goals?
It's I think the last count was it's 8 billion. It's outrageous. It's really frightening. We are losing by not grasping the nettle. But
well, that's the point I'm making. Is it not a point of great frustration that we've got these fines that are of very significant, very material size, and we can't get our SHIT together enough to get out from under those fines and start investing on something that actually puts us on the front foot for a change?
I totally agree with you. And what signal will it give to our younger generation, even the generation not born yet, even Ireland standing in Europe, if the Greens don't come back into Dáil Éireann, whatever about being in government, because you can be effective in opposition as well. I just think we are the driving force. We're not a passenger. We're driving that bus, and we are willing to drive it again. And you're asking me, remember about the other party stealing our clothes? We consider that a compliment. Remember when the first Green TD was elected, Roger Garland? There was the precursor to a primetime is Today Tonight. Are you old enough to remember that?
I remember watching it back. I'll put it that way.
Today Tonight. And they did a vox pop in a shopping mall in Rathfarnham. And they said, there's a Green has been elected, the first one ever. Have you seen? Have you seen? He's saying, has he told you this, that the planet's warming? He's talking about something about the planet warming. I said, yeah, no, I actually know him. He's a nice fella, but he's talking about some planet warming and we don't understand that bit. So we were ahead of our time there. We're prescient. And we will always lead from the front with the technology. It's going to be 10 years before we have this revolution of offshore energy, because the planning permissions are only going in now and the legislation is being completed. And we will, at this stage, I don't think we'll keep a close eye on it, but the heavy lifting's done here. We'll be the Saudi Arabia of wind generation. So we will be net exporters. It's going to be very interesting to Europe. But then I'm equally concerned, as are everyone in our party, about the waiting lists, the lack of GPs. My wife's GP and all that.
You've moved on, and you've
sorry.
You brought me nicely.
Yes, I just don't like being put in a I'm just an environmentalist, which I'm proud to be.
I get you. Don't worry. We're going to talk about local issues. Yeah, we're going to talk about real life stuff as well. So moving from the planet to a town in Kildare, Ireland, Europe, Selbridge. And you mentioned earlier on that your wife, Hilda, is a GP. So I suppose you'd have a little bit of first-hand understanding of the difficulties that GPs are facing.
I hear it every day,
nationwide, and it's a pain shared by their clients, their patients, their customers, whatever way you want to look at it, as a business or a service or whatever. You can't get a GP for love nor money. The amount of times you see a new parent who, because they've grown their family, they can't manage to get a GP, or because the rate of population growth in North East Kildare has obviously been just astronomical in the last few years. You have someone moving to Selbridge, Leixlip, Maynooth from Dublin, or from somewhere where they can't afford to live next to their parents, perhaps, because that's not uncommon. So they're moving out a little bit. They've got an enormous mortgage. They've got a huge commute, and they can't get a GP. Talk to me about that. What is the solution in your view? Surely it's a topic over the dinner table, so all insights welcome.
It is, and I have deep concerns, because I think there's a phrase, the best has yet to come. I think the worst has yet to come. I think there hasn't been forward planning for years. I think the GP service, which is vitally important, will implode, is on its knees already. And it's not just the GPs, it's the nurses in all these practices. It's the practice managers. They cannot cope. Demand exceeds supply. We need to hold on to our doctors. We have to attract them, get more of them employed, qualified, and hold on to them. I know a lot of them go abroad for a year. Hilda did that. I was heartbroken at the time, but she did come back from Sydney after a year.
Good for you.
I gave her a bit of space. And best thing I ever did.
Well, look, we're agreeing that there's a big problem. But what is the one single thing that should be done most immediately to attack that problem?
To have a greater supply of GPs, to bring more into the system.
Simple as that.
And for state intervention where it's needed in the primary care centres. Just like childcare, the Green Party's position on this, and I know I won't go on to childcare just yet, but I said it in respect of childcare, it should be state controlled, just like primary school and secondary school. But in respect of GPs, state should intervene. We should train more GPs. We should make Ireland an attractive place in the shorter term, bringing them in from all over the world. If it's and I'm afraid that might mean spending money, making it attractive salaries. The conditions of work are not good at the moment to qualify as a doctor. The doctors that go to Sydney for a year, they love it there. They're not panicked or working crazy hours. They can go for a barbie on the beach after their shift. You know, that doesn't happen here. So short term, whatever it takes money-wise, because this is a fundamental right. We have a right, it's a constitutional right.
It's very similar to the issues with childcare, but you and I are certainly, sorry, not you and I, perhaps the Green Party. I have a big fundamental difference of opinion with the Green Party on the issue of childcare and how that's been managed. So we won't get bogged down in it because it's quite weedy, I suppose. The points that I would make on it. I do have somebody in the audience suggesting that this government has left our children behind. I'm hearing this over and over. This government has left our children behind. What are you going to do to child-proof the policies, address the reallocation of resources for assessment of needs, rather than defending deficiencies? Where are the recreation facilities for our children, and to improve child protection services? Children are this country's greatest natural resource. Well, hear to that.
Agree. And I've do it myself. And I think to date, if you're being objective about it, this government, previous governments, they made progress, but they haven't delivered the playgrounds, the child safety levels that one would expect. And so we have to redouble our efforts going forward. It's not good enough that people are waiting years for different operations, different assessments, from CAMS to scoliosis. It's just not good enough. It reflects very poorly on the country that we are, the society that we are, and
it strikes me, Vince, I'd be very hard pressed to find a politician who's going to disagree with that, right? No matter what colour or creed they're coming from, I think everybody would agree that going in as a TD, you know full well what the issues are. In Celbridge, it's the bridge. The Three Schools project, Castletown. For parents, it's the fact that you are just maxed out trying to compete for services. It's a competition, you're running a gauntlet until they turn 18. And then where are they going to live? So you've got another worry. Like, everybody's agreeing with this. What the hell is wrong? Is it the permanent public service that drags us down into the mud with it all? Why is it the case that every TD walking into the Dáil agrees we need to do better for children, for example, or traffic management, for example, or every TD from North Kildare will tell you Celbridge needs a second bridge because we're crippled with traffic and choked with the fumes? And then it just doesn't get done. You'll forgive me, and maybe I'm just in a cranky mood
Yeah.
tonight, but my head is melted agreeing with politicians who agree that all these problems are dreadful, dreadful problems.
Yeah.
Where the hell is the change? What's
Yeah.
what's the problem getting things done? There's a big issue with delivery. Do you agree?
There's a huge issue with delivery, but you need someone to act and to do. You need to translate words into action. And I'm not going to blame the permanent government. And I'm not a fan of permanent governments. They're not Speedy Gonzales. I had to drag them kicking and screaming on certain issues. So I wouldn't rely on the permanent government. I don't think the body politic should hide behind the permanent government. Governments and the Dáil is where you're accountable. And it's just, if you listen to Stephen Donnelly, he said, oh, we've turned the corner and it's definitely happening and the waiting lists have reduced and there's more beds than there were last year. But people are not feeling it. The Greens will proudly say that we have the choice, the cost of childcare. And that's factually true. But people are not feeling that in their pocket. And I am that soldier. I remember when we had our first baby, we didn't realize the crisis. We couldn't find a creche. So the second baby, and this is quite common, we had to register a place in a creche before the baby was born, before we knew the sex of the child. Just baby X, baby,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There were members of my family who didn't yet know that I was pregnant.
Yeah.
When I got on a list because I was so terrified. I'd been through it already once and I wasn't going there again. I was not even 3 months gone when I found a perfect stranger to ask for a place some 18 months from then.
No.
So I know, and I don't want to blame public servants, as in people who are working in the public service as a whole cohort. It's not like that. But there's something blocking the intention of our public representatives. There's something blocking what they want to do and the delivery of it. Otherwise, we wouldn't be waiting. Is it 40 years we're waiting on a bridge in Celbridge? I don't even know. I know it's 20 years we're waiting on schools. I mean, come on. How many? And we're told today we have another 6 years to wait. But what crisis is going to hit us in the meantime to deliver?
I think we have a fundamental rethink of who we are. Maybe you need a czar. Try something else. Remember a man called Robinson went into Nottingham and had a overhauled and changed a hospital. I think he passed away there. He's from Northern Ireland. I think he was the CEO of that hospital. And I just think we're not putting people first. And it needs a fundamental rethink. And this, I know there's incremental changes and improvements, and you can.
There
are statistics, and more damn statistics. Disraeli said that.
Mm-hmm.
They're not cutting ice. And I'm telling you, as a senator in the upper house, I'm part of that body politic, and I'm not proud to say that it's not happening to date.
Mm-hmm.
And it needs a fundamental, maybe the next program for government that's negotiated. The Greens had their hands full negotiating the environmental brief the last time, the environmental ministry and the arts and culture ministry and the circular economy. Maybe if the Greens got back into government to try something different, we should ask to take the health portfolio. And in the past, it was called Angola. Brian Cowan once called it. It's a
hot potato.
There's need for fresh thinking. Give different people a chance. Maybe give the Greens a chance at this, because people have it's failed so far. The Greens, as part of that last government, there's a collective responsibility, being quite honest about it. And I don't have the stomach. Maybe the two bigger parties in government with us would say, oh, it's great and things that we've turned it around. I'm not going down that road with you. I'm trying to at least have frank candor and call it as it is, that it has failed the people of Ireland, and we need so much more. We need to not just redouble our efforts. Sounds like a cliche.
I know where you're going, and I mean I'm not 100% negative on it. On Monday I interviewed a veteran public servant who took his who has had an unbroken record in public service since the year I was born, and that one fact gave me pause for thought. A lot has changed since 1982 when I was born.
Yeah.
The country is not the disgrace it could be. despite what we've been through. But there are major, major problems, and there are major issues of trust with the government. And we're just coming up on time, so I want to move on to our last point, which lends nicely for trust. Are we going to trust them to do the right thing? Being, I suppose, the theme. What I'm picking up generally from friends and family, online as well as offline, trust is a big problem. And so, Vincent, I want to talk to you about Castletown.
I'm hoping
Now,
you'd come to that. You
I
couldn't.
will, couldn't not. We have one shot at this, don't
Oh,
we?
great. I hope we're not out of time. Please don't rush it.
We'll make time for Castletown.
Okay.
The Green Party are uniquely positioned, I suppose, are uniquely formal in their support of Castletown. Can you tell us?
Formalised it at an Ordash in our policy.
That's exactly what I was getting at. So that means that there's a commitment by the Green Party to row in behind objectives for the betterment of Castletown, for the preservation of the biodiversity there, the entire issue to solve it and reclaim it. And I was very, very glad to see that motion went through, because it meant something.
Yeah.
Now, there are two, I'm banging this drum all week, but I'm going to keep banging it, because if I have to buy an actual drum and go down to, KCC offices and bang it outside the door until they tell me to stop, I will. I am banging a drum about the rights of way through Castletown, Vincent, because I'm fed up. There are two primary, not two in total, but there are two primary rights of way through Castletown. One is Gaze Avenue, which is a private developer, which is the whole area that Kieran O'Donnell is looking at.
Yeah.
And the organisation that I work with, so full disclosure, Safe Castletown Committee, is looking at. There is another right of way that, if it was recognised, the communities of Leixlip and Celbridge wouldn't be severed from each other by OPW and their big padlock and their bunch of keys. I've got a big problem with it, because this is the right of way along the riverside, so between the Celbridge Gate and the Ballyline. You're nodding because you know the geography like I do.
Yeah.
There is undeniably a road passing through Castletown along the riverside.
Yeah.
And the reason I say it's undeniably, and they say, well, methinks the lady protests too much. They say, well, Jesus, why are you arguing about it? So I'm arguing about it because the OPW came out with a contrary piece of information that has been one of the single most distressing things they've put on paper. OPW have a great knack of distressing this community, but this one statement has kept me awake for over a year now, and I want to go through the reasons I don't like it. They said that there is no right of way, no, there was never a public road, through Castletown on the north side of the River Liffey. I'm going to read you a set of facts. I'm going to ask you for a favour. Members of both the Connolly Carew family of Castletown and the Kirkpatrick of Donnacumper families have written that it is on the north side, that this public road is on the north side of the river through Castletown. So the people who live on the domains that are split by the river have both said the road was on the north side of the River Liffey through Castletown. Claude Kane of St. Wolston's referred to that as the county road. Kildare County Council commissioned a different report, completely separate, in 2006, identifying the location as the north side of the River Liffey through Castletown. I'm going to speed through these because there's a lot. Professor Finola O'Kane has written that it's on the north bank through Castletown. That report was co-authored by another doctor, Dr. John Ollie. The meticulous historian Lena Boylan said the same thing, and she went further in telling Professor O'Kane that Lady Louisa had tried and failed to extinguish the right of way. The book published with that information was actually for sale in Castletown House. There is a painting from 1760 of the old road clearly in the domain, complete with people walking on it, commissioned by the Connolly family. As I said to Deputy Bernard Durkin, that's the nearest thing to photographic evidence I'm going to be able to offer anybody. There is a painting of it. 2 weeks ago, I attended an unrelated talk by the excellent Celbridge Historical Society. The talk was given by Dr. Seamus Cullen with a completely different approach. He was coming in for the geographical side and the historical side, and he had more backup for that location. I picked up a book in the library on Saturday morning, and it had further backup again, another author, Herman Geisels. I have held in my hand a deed of indenture from 1798 stating that ways were transferred down at the Parsonstown end of the estate. OPW actually had, now I know you don't know this, Vincent, because it wasn't public information until I began, had permission to, and began to share the information this week, that OPW had a third-party archaeologist come into the domain, dig up the trenches, and they identified the physical road. I can tell you the shape of the stones in the road that runs along the riverside in Castletown. The archaeologist identified it as the old high road, so this old road that goes through Castletown. The report was witnessed by an OPW person. An OPW person was involved in the report. The report was commissioned by OPW. I have citations for all of that. Is somebody lying to us, or what the hell is going on with this serious mismatch between what OPW have said to the community, who they have severed, the Parsonstown side leak slip, and the Celebrity side, they have cut us off from one another at opening hours that they are choosing. What is going on? Can you help us to raise this in Kildare County Council and among the Green Party and in the Dáil and in the Shannon? Can you do something with this information for us?
Absolutely. And you try each and everything to tackle this. I've raised it on a number of occasions in the Shannon. Unfortunately, I'm the last Green in the county because I said we're a party in government and we have lost our county councillors. I hope to be a voice, a different perspective on this with my legal hat on as well as a member of Dáil Éireann. But I think we would agree on one thing, and everyone in Selbridge, and I know it's a jewel in the crown of Selbridge, but I live in Naas, out to Kilcullen Road in Mullacash. We go there as a family. And I know it's big in Lucan and Leakslip. They come from all over Ireland. At one stage, we nearly had 1 million visitors per annum. So to answer your question, I think the local authority, and they're good people there, but they're not trailblazers either, local authorities. I'd like them to take a lead role and look at that. And maybe the county council could commission a legal opinion, which they could stand over, to look at would that be legally reliable at this stage, considering it may not have been used for a long time, the legal reliability on the access and right of way of what you're saying. But we owe it to Castletown, we owe it to everyone to do everything possible. The one thing, would we not all agree one thing, as I just said a few seconds ago, that we want all the lands reunited? Would you agree with that?
Here, absolutely.
Okay. And does that not resolve it all if they're all reunited?
No, because
with the right of way. Sorry, with the right of ways.
If the right of way was declared as it should be, because it exists. It's just that KCC haven't. I mean, it exists. You know.
Yes.
Then OPW would be in contrary to the law in locking us out.
Correct.
So that right of way is very important. So even if the domain is reunited, yes, what's the point in reuniting the domain if you give the OPW, who have just demonstrated that they are a power-hungry group of people running a fiefdom in Castletown, keeping the peasants at the gate? Yeah. What is the point in reuniting the domain if the keys to the domain are going to be with somebody who's going to lock us out of it? So, correct. So the two things need to be done separately. Yeah. And KCC have a very important role to play.
They have a very important role to play. And I believe the land should be reunited. I'd like to go back to where we were a couple of years ago. It just sounds like it's well over a year ago. I was at a meeting in Selbridge GA Hall. Were you there that night?
I was, yes. I met you that night, I think.
It was such a big issue. But let's look at the facts of this. We are told there is a willing seller and a willing buyer who are going to buy it at market rate. And both sides said, and you think this was going to be the major problem, getting the government to get their checkbook out. The government have repeatedly said they will buy the lands, including ensuring the right of way would be restored, at market value. And I don't expect them to pay above market value. The seller said, talk to me, market value. So there's some sort of a standoff. I'm not going to do the blame game, but there's some shenanigans going on there because it hasn't happened. And normally when someone is willing to buy something and you're willing to sell it, and if you were selling me a car, Trust, and you said, I'm going to get rid of this car, I'm willing to sell it, and all I want is market value. I want my fair price for it. And I think what
it comes down to is the definition of fair market value. I think
there's ways of definitions of sorting it out. There's ways of definitions of sorting that out.
There are, but there's comparables. It has become very nuanced and complicated. That whole conversation is my very firm understanding from everything I'm hearing from all sides.
And just on that, Trasido, so it hasn't happened. How long do you give this for it to happen? I said over a year ago, and I'm not on my own. In fairness to me, I think Bernard Durkin, my colleague in the Oireachtas, said the same. Why not go down the road of a CPO?
Mm-hmm.
Now, we'd be 1 year. Oh, people say, oh, Vincent, that's a long thing. That could end up mired in litigation. What progress have we made in the last year? Let the shenanigans go on in the corner, and we'll pull out of the CPO if it sorts itself out. But don't hold the people to ransom. We could compulsory acquire the lands. We could restore access to what was heretofore enjoyed. We could reunite a jewel in the crown of Irish heritage. But why don't we do that? Because there's a culture in local authorities, and I'm not personalising this against Kildare one, I know all about them, that don't take a radical option. And it'd be slightly radical for the local authority to embark on a CPO proceedings. And they don't all get marred in years of controversy. And try other things as it's going on. It doesn't mean everyone sticks their head in the sand in the meantime. But I just do not understand why that option has not been even put on the table. Because like Kevin Mullen is a good friend of mine and a Green Party member and a former chairperson of Save Castletown. I know he's a big supporter of the Gate Protectors. I would talk to Kevin quite a lot on this, as I'm sure many people do. It is my greatest regret in my 4 years in the Seanad that this, and it's a regret on behalf of politics, because no one has done party political point scoring over it, if you notice.
Yeah, that's true. I do notice.
And I think we should particularly commend the Oireachtas members in opposition. They didn't politically point score over this. But I've never seen such a united voice. And I've been at the meetings with Patrick Donovan, with Kieran O'Donnell, and it's going around in circles. And there's such goodwill in the room amongst the Oireachtas members. No one's jumping ahead and doing a solo run or it just, they're totally of one voice. They want the situation restored. They want vehicular proper access. They want that thriving, beautiful house to be reopened, and they are deeply concerned about its upkeep and maintenance at the moment. But what we shouldn't do is turn person against person and us getting into a big row with the unions. I just think that's going down a rabbit hole where the people are having a big standoff with the union or with the Office of Public Works. We have got to, and the proper market value will be decided as it is in any CPO. That is decided.
You're right. You're right. I feel I should. Yeah, I'm going to come in, Vincent. There, the standoff with the CPO, to the extent that there is a standoff.
Oh, sorry, the OPW. Sorry, the OPW.
Oh, sorry, thank you. With the OPW, there is no standoff with the unions. I mean, they're not a party. They're not even.
Well, I heard on the radio 6 months ago they were saying their members are going in there, and it's a sideshow. Sideshow
is right. I mean, this is to my mind, it's OPW's problem to solve. But in terms of not standing off against OPW haven't really done themselves any favors.
Certainly haven't
with this, and so I just wanted to come back in on your point and just say there is a point to resisting.
Second that, I'd fully concur with you. Okay. I'm not. The people on the front line are the champions and the heroes of the hour, and they are not going away. I've spoken to them. I just think they're amazing and they're an inspiration, but all they want is a restoration of the status quo. And you could go down cutting a long-term lease and all the rest and go back to where we were. For once and for all, sorted out. A CPO is the way to go. I'm not the only public representative that said that.
No, indeed.
And as Michael Healy-Rae would say, in the God-wide earthly world, understand why that has not been countenanced and has not been commenced. Because I have a little bit of form in this. I'm proudly a county councillor who topped the poll in Naas in 2019, and we had a paralysis in one of Ireland's most beautiful urban parks called the Burg Lands. I don't know if you
yes, I'm very familiar with that. And it's connected with Old Town, a lot of parallels, yeah.
And there were lots of private motions behind the scenes at council meetings that you couldn't reporting, and I asked question after question. I was forcing the people together in a mediation. I was going to bring them in, the purported guy who wanted to cooperate and sell, and bang, it suddenly sorted itself out. And now we have a beautiful, beautiful parkland smack bang in the heart of Naas, out the Sallins Road. But, you know, and I'm not the only person, but I feel I had a pivotal positive role. If in Dáil Éireann, I will push this like never before. In the upper house, you don't get the same coverage. I know KFM give me a bit of coverage on this, in fairness to them. But in the lower house in Dáil Éireann, you know, I will be a thorn in their side, advocating and insisting that the impasse is broken. That how long is this going to go on to? And don't put all your eggs in the one basket. Let them continue these talks that I can't see them making any progress at the moment, and no one can talk about the talks because it's mediation, and all mediation is confidential, and we hear rumors that, oh, he was asking for so much more than he expected, and you'll hear others, oh, the OPW are very uncooperative. I don't care about that hearsay blame game. Let's explore your right of way and get a legal opinion from a conveyancing expert, and if that comes out right, go to court and waive that opinion at any High Court judge. And if you get the right one or two people to write it, that will shake the place. They could fold. That's one option.
It is.
The second option is CPO. The third option is the lease, long-term lease. It's not impossible. This is turning into... Yeah.
For clarity, the CPO will address the right of way along Gaze Avenue. The right of way that I'm talking about, that is disconnecting Parsonstown and Selbridge from each other along that riverside.
That's a nice thing to do, but
I think it's an awful pity that it should fall on a community to take KCC to court.
I would not do that.
To perform one of their obligations under the planning laws that they should recognise.
That doesn't happen.
So do I. But we need to realise.
I hope the plaintiff will be the local authority, the Kilkenny Council of the County. Versus, that's how it's in a. I don't expect any individual to take a risk on the cost of that case.
We're on the
local authority. You have every single councillor in the Selbridge district, on the Selbridge Leixlip district, fully united. They have said, and the developers should know this, there's not a snowball's chance those councillors are going to zone high density housing in what he has. No. I don't believe that would happen ever. They'd have to face the people of Selbridge. This is a golden jewel in the crown of heritage in Kildare, and Selbridge of all places that hasn't got its fair crack at the whip for years, that hasn't got the playgrounds, that is still waiting on the bridge. This is it's farcical what has happened, Selbridge. I just, words fail me, and for this to add insult to injury, the biggest recreational beauty and facility that they have, to be locked up and mired in this shameful controversy is just totally unacceptable. And maybe at the next programme for government negotiations, if it's the Greens, because we can't get things in after you enter a programme for government, and it was cited to several times during the programme for government, you've got this, no, you didn't get that, Vincent, you can't, that's not agreed. So the Greens, if we go into government negotiations, I will put that front and centre. I want to know what's going on. I don't know. We're all in the dark. But there's a lot of anger, and we have to channel the anger into positive, effective change. And I hope the other parties will give that commitment, and I'm sure they hopefully will, in the programme for government negotiations, that they will put Castletown front and centre. And once for all, resolve it, Trasa.
So do I. So do I. I mean, I enjoy talking with.
Sorry for getting a bit animated.
No.
Frustrating,
me too. It is frustrating, but it's sometimes it's nice to passionately agree with somebody.
And I'm not half as frustrated as the champions on the front line in rain, hail, sleet, and snow. But I think you're closing on me soon. And we're
I
talking about the
am.
weather. I was in Selbridge 2 days ago. I don't know if some of your viewers want to listen, go on Facebook or Instagram.
I saw the video. You were there.
I was canvassing in short sleeves. I joked I could do it, we could do it suntan lotion, but it was nearly like sunglass wearing weather. And a series of weather events becomes a climate concern. I'm not talking about a single issue, but a series of weather events. And thankfully, the scientists agree on this. An or two are behind the door for a long time, but in the last 10 years, I used to complain and canvass them, as did my party. They're now being very forthright and unequivocal in the science, and they're relaying that in what was Science Week after the 9 o'clock news, the weather forecast. But then tonight after my canvass, there was ice in the windscreen. So the T-shirt I'd on in Selbridge, it's really worrying in the middle of November to have these. And I'm not saying it's just one day's weather, but we all know this is happening. And this is on our doorstep. And Ireland, I know we're no longer a laggard and we're moving in the right direction, but we do still emit as much as 400 million of the poorest people in the world, our small country. We still have a long way to go, but we have hope. And I hope a Green presence in Dáil Éireann, and we're always in fighting for the last seat, including making an historic breakthrough in Kildare North, will shine a light on that and will advocate for the people of Kildare North, will advocate for the good people of Selbridge, who I know so many of them. I lived in Maynooth for 10 years, and will advocate for Castletown. I know it's a national election, but I would like to see more front and centre specific commitments on Castletown, so that the electorate know what you're going to get from the different parties. We only had 12 TDs the last time. I'm just telling you, we won't leave down behind the next time. It hadn't arisen at the time. You never know. You never can see around the corner. It's now front and centre. It's very much obvious. You can't but see it. And I hope there will be a resolution in the next Dáil.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. You heard it there yourself. So, I mean, Vincent is telling us that you need the experts, the people who were before the curve on climate change, and the revolution that is needed in the country to deal with climate change, but also a number of the systematic and systemic issues that we're having in the country in terms of service delivery. We touched on GPs, we touched on childcare, schools, the bridge, Castletown. So a very wide-ranging discussion, and I'm grateful to you, Vincent, for joining us and giving us your time. It's part of my evil plan, of course, is to pull people off the campaign trail for a night so that they have to sit and talk to us here in Selbridge Politics. I'll give it over to you to give a parting word to our audience, and then I'll wrap us up if that's okay.
And thank you very much. And thanks for your indulgence if we went over time. But I did say the most bills in the Shannon. Some of that work is not done. I want to complete the job. I want to fulfill that mandate by getting into Dáil Éireann. I understand the responsibility, the privilege, but I understand the power that I would have to write legislation. I have enough bills to keep me going. The honeybee one passed all stages in the Shannon. The day it did that, a button is literally, metaphorically speaking, is triggered, and it goes in the order paper of Dáil Éireann. I want to pick up that bill. But who will do that if I'm not there? I say to your listeners tonight, from a biodiversity perspective, vote Vincent P to save the bee. But I also say for our next generation, if you want a voice a consistent voice to continue of climate and social justice, vote Vincent P. Martin. And I'm a small party. The two big parties are running away with this election in the opinion polls. They're both north of 20%. They're doing very well. I just hope the smaller parties, include my own, the Green Party, is not squeezed out. But they won't be squeezed out, and they will have a voice, and we will have a different perspective and a viewpoint in the next Dáil if I get enough number one votes. It's as simple as that. If votes aren't in the box, it doesn't happen. And I am willing to serve the people of Kildare North if given the mandate to do so. I just missed it the last time. I'm up for it this time. And we're all custodians on this earth for the next generation. I'm currently the person who's carrying the banner for that Green Party, and I'm hoping to bring in the greater Green movement, but also non-Green voters. I can't get here without Green voters. And the Greens in the past could have done better messaging. I'm getting a lot of votes from people who say, Vincent, you're a hard worker on the ground. I see what you've done for the last 5 years, but I don't vote Green, but I'll vote you. I say, thank you very much. That's good. Come with me on that journey. I won't let you down. I don't finger wag, finger point judgmentalism. I want us all to realize that going green puts more money in your pocket if we get the right messaging out there, that there are jobs in this, that it's not about taxing people, that it's a better quality of life and it's a safer quality of life, and it'll put more money in your pocket. But thank you very much for your time and for your viewers. And they can all contact me directly on any of the social media if they want a private chat, and I will happily talk to them. And well done yourself, Tressa.
Thank you so much, Vincent. I really appreciate that. Vincent Martin looking for your #1 vote, folks, on November 29th. So you will be able to watch this again back on replay. The video will be here within the group. The podcast will be released probably tonight and probably near midnight. So you should pick that up in your feed, just speaker.podbean.com if you'd like to see it. Vincent, I'll send you a link directly. And with that, I'll say thank you for the questions and comments, everyone, and for being with us. And Ihoa, see you tomorrow. Take care.